Today we're going to take a look at something that is essentially e-waste from the day it was created. This is the Gateway SX2110G, a small form factor desktop PC from 2013, and at the time it cost nearly $300. And at this point with inflation that probably puts it well over $400. And I don't know if you can tell from just looking at it that it's super cheap, but you're definitely going to see somewhere in this video that it is super cheap. So as some of you may know, Gateway was actually bought out by Acer in 2007. So for all intents and purposes, this is an Acer PC. Not to be confused with the Gateways that you can currently buy from Walmart that are just rebadged EVOO PCs from China. So this thing is actually a pretty interesting little piece of tech. It's not the worst design I've ever seen, but it is kind of questionable in some places. Let's go ahead and crack it open real quick. So inside we have an ITX form factor motherboard with an AMD Vision E1 1500 2-core 2-thread CPU under what looks like a 30mm fan. It is soldered to the motherboard. There is no upgrading that CPU unless you replace the whole motherboard. So if you're a framework owner, you probably don't care. What's interesting about this CPU is it's actually originally intended for a netbook like this Acer Aspire 1. Get subscribed to see me fumble my way through trying to operate this old device. I might actually try to play some games on it, who knows. For graphics, it has integrated Radeon HD 7310 graphics, that is Terascale 2. It is 2 CUs with 80 shader units. For RAM, it comes with 2 sticks of RAM. Obviously, I have upgraded the RAM in this one. Oh, I've annoyed it, apparently. Usually it has 6 GB of RAM. One stick is 4 GB of fairly okay X8 RAM, and then the other stick is 2 GB of X16 RAM. That is super cheap. I feel like because this is a slightly higher end SKU, they had to make it come with 6 GB of RAM instead of 4, so they just haphazardly stabbed this extra stick of RAM in there. Like the color doesn't even match. So I've actually upgraded the RAM to 8 GB of G.Skill rope jaws just to keep it from being the slowest piece of crap I've ever used. For a power supply, it has an 80 watt, 80 plus bronze proprietary little unit down here. For storage, I have added on a 120 GB SSD here. I did not want to boot all of this off of the what would be 500 GB hard drive. The hard drive actually died on this PC, and it's actually how I ended up with it. But for now, I do have a 300 GB hard drive in here underneath the optical drive. So let's take a quick look at how that is mounted. So how this is mounted is something that I actually find pretty interesting about this device. They've actually put the hard drive sideways underneath the optical drive. I have obviously disconnected the optical drive because I'm using the SATA port for the SSD. What's funny is hidden underneath the optical drive, there's actually a 4-pin CPU connector, but because the CPU is only 18 watts, it doesn't even need it or use it. So another thing that I thought was pretty interesting about this device is the optical release button is right here. And when you have it mounted on the case, the release button is right here, right? So if you look at the front panel of this case, there is no button here. It's completely smooth. They've actually moved the button up to the top here. So they've actually added a set of interesting little mechanisms here to press that release button from the top of the case. So I thought that was kind of interesting. It's kind of stupid and pointless, but it's a neat little thing that they just kind of engineered for this device. The front panel, of course, just hooks on, clicks on. For front I/O, we have a headphone jack, a microphone jack, an SD card slot, and 2 USB ports. And then in the rear, we have all the audio ports again, Ethernet jack, 2 USB ports, another 2 USB ports, an HDMI, a VGA, and 2 PS2 plugs for a mouse and keyboard, along with some breakout PCI ports in case you wanted to add a PCI card to this. You really can't add a graphics card to this unless it's a low profile one. And even then it's kind of hard because the full-size PCI port is butted right up against the side of the case. So anything over a single slot would be pretty much entirely pointless. And I think the integrated graphics is better than a GT 610, so that kind of goes out my only option. But if you wanted to add, say, an Elgato to something like this, you could. Not to say that you would want to, because literally any PC could stream better than this thing. Interestingly enough, there is no USB 3.0 on this device, even though USB 3.0 came out a few years before it was built. Anyway, let's boot this thing up and see just how bad it is at gaming. So we actually are running with a fresh install of Windows 8, even though it did take 4 hours to update Windows 8 on it. It did fully update. Interestingly enough, Windows 8 was literally the only thing I could get drivers to work on the integrated graphics on here. Like, some people would be like, oh, well, the drivers are built into the Linux kernel. It doesn't want to work with pretty much most games. They don't want to work. It is running a AMD Catalyst driver, so that kind of indicates that the driver is at least 6 years old at this point, because AMD made the move from Catalyst to Adrenalin sometime in 2015. But it does play some games, surprisingly enough. Even though I really feel like the integrated graphics on this was just AMD trying to justify their $5 billion purchase of ATI. Like, the drivers don't want to work on Windows 7. But, hold up. The PC does not want to boot Windows 7. Like, if I put a Windows 7 ISO on here, it'll usually fail an install. If I put Windows 10 on here, the drivers don't want to work with Windows 10. If I put Linux, Manjaro, Ubuntu, all of those distros do not want to boot any games off of the integrated graphics. It's a nightmare. So Windows 8, literally the only thing that this thing wants to go with, which is kind of funny. Now that we're booted into Windows, it doesn't actually take too long to boot into Windows. I'd say like maybe a minute, minute and a half. I mean, obviously we're booting off of an SSD, so we can't fully compare that to what its boot up time would be if it had a hard drive, but I can't imagine the hard drive would be the bottleneck in this scenario, given that the CPU is that slow. So let's just take a quick look at its probably intended purpose, which is web browsing. Load up eBay here, see how long it takes. You really have to give it a few seconds to, load everything that's on the page. Take a quick look at, say, this laptop here. 15% off. Wow, Ryzen 7 4700U, 8 gigabyte, ooh, a 1 terabyte hard drive. Oh, it has an SSD. You know, it's not a smooth web browsing experience. There are definitely some hitches here. Try to open up another tab. Let's try to watch, say, a 4K video. Man, if we can even load into freaking YouTube. Not too bad. Oh wow, we're the third result. How about that? All right, let's see if it can play back 4K. Oh man, it's really struggling. Yeah, I don't think it has 4K playback in its sites. Let's just try some 1080p here. Yeah, I'm experiencing some interruptions. I don't think it's your fault, YouTube. Man, it feels like even 1080p video playback is difficult for it. Just, the CPU just pinned at 100%. It's trying. It's trying really hard. Yeah. Don't even think it has 1080p video playback in its sites here. Let's try 720p. It's playing it, but I'm not seeing any video. Okay, YouTube. I mean, it's really trying at 720p. I can't even say that it's good for that. Okay, 480p. It'll do 480p video playback, and it's still pinned at 100%. Wow, this is incredibly bad. So yeah, web browsing, its intended purpose is pretty painful. Oh well. Let's move on to some gaming. It's definitely not intended purpose. Let's just start out with Unreal Tournament 2004. So nearly a decade before this thing was even built. Like, I could have swore that I had already been playing this game on this system, and yet here it is, installing DirectX again. Now, this integrated graphics solution only has support for DirectX 11, so you're not playing any of the latest titles on it unless they're like indie titles. If you can't tell, I have Among Us installed in here, so we'll see how bad that plays, but it didn't take too terribly long to install DirectX, so that's nice, I guess. I honestly wonder how this compares to a good PC from 2004. bad. You know, 40, yeah, 70 FPS, not bad. I'm okay with this. This is okay. This is good. So if you want to play a game from 2004, definitely playable. All right, let's try out some Skyrim. A game that came out right around when the processor did. We're just gonna set all the stuff to minimum. We do not need to even try to play this with any decent settings. It's okay, it'll start responding. It's fine. Let's go ahead and continue whatever random adventure I was on. No, don't worry, it's responding. It will eventually respond. It's fine. Just give it some time. Come on, buddy, you can respond. Oh, there we go. Oh yeah, now we're talking. So yeah, we're getting about 20 FPS in Skyrim. I'm pretty sure there's probably 100 mods to make this play even better on a low spec system. I'm sure somebody's got a video on it, but you know, right out of the box, the game is pretty not great. Oh no, did I crash it? No, but no. You're fine. You're fine. Don't worry, buddy. You're okay. Yeah, I'm just gonna go ahead and close it. It's not playable. Don't try to play Skyrim on this system. Let's try out a game that's slightly older in Fallout New Vegas. Same game engine, but maybe the older assets might allow it to have a slightly higher frame rate. Again, we're going with all low 600p, no screen effects, vertical sync, windowed, all the above. To my amazement, it actually does play these games. Like, I really didn't think that it would let me even attempt to play these games because it's so basic. They're 2 CUs, 80 shading units, 80 shading units of Terrascale 2. Like, this is like 9 generations behind. Let's go ahead and continue whatever adventure that I was on in this game. So this game gets slightly higher frame rates of, 20 something. Again, not 100% playable here, but the fact that it plays at all is very impressive to me. Oh, and Victor's blowing my legs off. Yeah, not a great experience, but surprisingly enough, it does play. Let's go ahead and try out League of Legends, a game that should not be played on any system. I'm just gonna go ahead and hop into a custom game, add a single bot. Watch this very closely, because if you know a single person who loads this game slower than this, I do not understand how that is feasible. Anyway, it's taking its sweet time. Look at that loading bar. Look at how fast it's moving. Oh god, it stopped at 40. The saddest thing about that is I know for a fact some of my ARAM games take longer to load than that. So clearly the SSD is somewhat helping this poor thing. We're getting about 30 FPS. Look how big my cursor is. It's huge. I would not want to play this game like this though. There's like no assets on the screen, and we only have 35 FPS. Not to say that you couldn't play the game like this. I wouldn't say it's not possible. I'm just saying it would be slightly frustrating at times, given, you feel like you would be mechanically better at the game and then get a spot of lag and then you just die without seeing what happened. I definitely expected this to be worse. League is just one of those games that will actually play on anything. Let's go ahead and play a title that I feel like should play pretty good on this. That is Call of Duty 4, Modern Warfare, the original, the OG. Not too bad. You could enjoy it. You could enjoy this fine title at 480p. I'm really not that turned off by this. You definitely wouldn't want to play any multiplayer like that, but it's playable. You could play a 12-year-old Call of Duty title. Let's try Among Us. Unsurprisingly, it can play Among Us at 60 FPS. Literally no surprises here, but I just think it's funny because this is my default game when I install Steam to create a Steam folder. I just install Among Us because it's so small and it's right at the top of the list. Let's see what Age of Empires 2 looks like. Not too bad. I think this game plays at a locked 30 FPS anyway. I don't think you play this game at a higher FPS. You might. Someone's gonna correct me in the comments. I don't play this game, but I think it plays at 30 FPS anyway. Even though I feel like it should be faster than this. Either way, I'm sure it's playable. Maybe if you get a whole bunch of textures on the screen, it might slow down. I don't know, but it looks pretty playable. It's not a very demanding title anyway. Now let's try out the upper extreme of what I would play on this sturdy old hardware. Grand Theft Auto 5. I'm pretty sure Grand Theft Auto 5 came out about the same time as this did. Honestly, I'm kind of surprised by how well it's doing. It's not great by any means, but the expectation was very low. And the fact that it can like boot up and play some of these games, albeit not great. There's mods that could fix the playability of some of these games. I'm really impressed. Like I was fully expecting this to just be a massive pile of e-waste that couldn't even launch these games, and then the browsing experience be like what we got from Vista. But honestly, I can't hate it that much. It's still a functional PC. Somebody could realistically use this PC to do schoolwork. Would it be a good time? Probably not, but it's better than nothing. And I would honestly hesitate just throwing it in the trash instead of like, say, trying to find somebody who needs this, because there's always somebody out there who needs a PC just to do homework, schoolwork, pay bills, like that kind of stuff. And as opposed to doing it on your phone, which is probably a better option than a lot of this stuff, but I digress. Being able to hook this up to a screen and use it for just day-to-day life would probably be a godsend for somebody. Come on, Grand Theft Auto, I know you can load. Don't do me like this. So after about 10 minutes of loading into Grand Theft Auto 5, this is what I load into. The mouse doesn't seem to have any input as far as directional view goes. I appear to only have forward-back movements on the keyboard. A lot of things are not loading. That might be why I'm not being able to move left and right, is because I'm up against something that I can't see. Like the texture's not showing, but there's definitely an object there. Now, I know that this game has tons of mods or like settings that you can change to like make it play on like below minimum specs, but this is just what you get if you load it straight onto this machine. I can't even get it to go back into third person. I don't remember how to get it to go to third person, but honestly, I don't really care. This isn't going to be a playable experience no matter what I do. Actually, it probably could be a playable experience if I tried hard enough, but I don't want to go through all that effort. This has been an absolute nightmare to film. All of this stuff takes so freaking long. So if you would, please leave us a like, drop us a comment on what you want us to do with crappy hardware in the future. I'm going to go ahead and take everything out of this PC and do a dank ITX build inside of this PC. So go ahead and get subscribed for that. And like always, guys, I'll see you next time.